Welcome back, everybody. It's The Front Porch, WBOK 1230 AM, the station you listen to all day long. It's a Bad Cheering Wednesday, and we have lots of guests on The Front Porch today. I'm Melanie Rose, along with Casey Ferrand, and we have on the phone lines with us Mr. Herjet Harris, Charlene Hardette, and Brenda Williams, and they are here to talk about the 50th anniversary of a student movement and the deaths of Denver Smith and Leonard Brown. Good morning. Welcome everyone on the front porch.
Good morning.
Thank you. It's a little chilly out here today, but I think we can get through that, right?
Yes. Hopefully you're inside, right?
Well, we're on the front porch, aren't we?
Oh, yeah. Well, okay. I got it. Literally,
we totally missed the reference.
Okay, we did. We're on the front porch, and it's like any front porch in New Orleans. We talk to our neighbor families and friends. We talk to one another. We talk about one another, but we do it face to face. And so most importantly, what I'd like for each one of you to do is introduce yourselves and tell our listening audience about what you about yourself and what you're doing with the special 50th anniversary of the student movement.
We'll start with you, Mr. Herjet.
Pardon me?
Go ahead, Mr. Herjet.
Well, Brenda could probably best set the stage for what's happening today.
Okay.
I can talk about how we got here. I can talk about what happened in 72, how we brought ourselves to this place in 72. If you'd like me to start off with that.
Oh, certainly. We'd like to know the history of it, yes.
Good. Okay. Well, back in 72, there was a lot going on, especially with the psychology department. They were pretty active in trying to identify any number of things that within the community that was in need of attention. One of the things that they were actively involved in was the conditions at the Ann Theater during that time, and there were a number of things going on that was, for example, showing movies to the X-rated movies that young kids were allowed to go into, also the condition of the theater. So that and a number of other things were issues that they were trying to address. Also, on campus, there were a number of things happening on campus that seemed to be systemic, and it seemed to be throughout the campus, one of which we were losing a lot of very talented professional instructors that were leaving because of some similar reasons. Many of them found it almost impossible to get the necessary equipment, to get the necessary accommodations, and to get the necessary support through the administration to handle their departments.
And Mr. Herjet, if I could just interject, this happened on Southern University's campus?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, on Southern's campus. And as we look at what was going on the other in New Orleans, Southern University in New Orleans, Southern University in Shreveport, this was a systemic thing. So this was not a single campus issue. And so we began to try and organize around that. One of the things that happened was that we had organizations in various departments, and I know Sakari was, and by Sakari I mean Charlene, because that's her chosen name. My chosen name was Sababu. So we asked the student organizations in the various departments to come together so that we can address this as a student body. That's where the name Students United came from, because it was a conglomeration of all of the events that were necessary in every department. I was in the engineering department. Myself and Ronald Loving were in the process of creating an engineering student organization where we could address the issues that were necessary in the engineering students, in the engineering department. There were people, Sakari and her folks were in the psychology department. There was a social political science department. Malik and all were in that, and there were various departments within this university who all had similar concerns. We pool those together, and as a group, Students United, we tried to address those. Now, we did not have a student leader. The newspaper and others would like for you to believe that there was a leader, and when you have a leader, you have a target. You have a single person who, when they are taken out, then the organization seems to go wayside. But this was not an organization in that way. So we had a Students United organization that consisted of a number of people. We had core members who took on various responsibilities. We had core members who took on responsibilities to maintain communication with the local community or with the various groups in the organization. We had people who were responsible for helping to articulate, the vision, to articulate our steps. So this was happening in a core group that we met very frequently. We also made every effort to embrace, everybody on campus. And throughout our demonstrations, our protests, we had, as Malik will tell you, a very high percentage cooperation on campus. We never intimidated anyone to have them join or participate. Students were in this organization very much a part of everything that we did, and so there was been a lot of misstatements by members of the media as well as the government.
Let's go to Sakari for a bit. I want to get a little more of your recollection of what was happening on campus during this time, and what do you believe ultimately led up to the deaths of 2 students during this student movement on campus?
Oh, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Well, I want to really second everything that Sababu said. We were a well-organized group of students.
Sakari, can you speak up a bit? We can barely hear you.
Okay, let me take you off the speaker. Hold on. Can you hear me now?
That's better. Yeah.
Can you hear me better now?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. We were a well-organized group of students, and we tried to have everybody involved on the campus. Sababu mentioned earlier that we were in touch with the students. We would meet every day, and we would meet in the morning every day, and we always had at least 4 or 5, sometimes even more than that, 1,000 students participate in what we were doing. And some of the main things that we were concerned about were the fact that we were losing professors. The students weren't being prepared to go out into the black community, into our community, and do what was necessary to lift our communities up. They were primarily trained to become a part of corporate America and to continue the status quo. So we wanted the university to be more inclusive of our community, and also to train our students from an African perspective and to understand what our responsibilities were to our people. And those are some of the things that we thought about, including the conditions on the campus. Now, when Sababu and the other students were arrested, and that was on the morning of November 16th, I was taken to the state prison. So I'm not as familiar with all of the things that occurred when they went to the administration building to ask Netterville to release us from jail. But in terms of what I feel happened, I believe that the governor of the state, who was Edwin Edwards at the time, was responsible for the two students being killed. Edwin Edwards ordered the National Guard on the campus. He ordered the state police on the campus. He ordered the local police on the campus. And they even brought a tank on the campus to allegedly control little students who wanted a better education for themselves and who wanted a better social conditions for the majority of our people. We were never violent. We never caused any harm to anybody. The only time that there was any violence on the campus is when they brought all of those police on the campus to slaughter, not kill, to slaughter two innocent students on campus at that time. Like I said, I can't tell you about what happened on November 16th, but I can tell you about all of the demonstrations that we had. We organized the students. We had the lowest when students would not participate in the class, and we had a lot of professors who supported us too. Joseph Johnson, who was a PhD from Yale, Chuck Waddell, who was a PhD from Michigan State, George Baker, who was from UCLA, a lot of professors, and these are the professors that they were trying to get rid of because they weren't a part of the good old black Southern boys network and a part of the Southern University network. So they were trying to push anybody that was progressive, who tried to bring progressive ideas into the university to try to make the university more Afrocentric. They were opposed to that. And those are some of the main conditions. And then the housing conditions, the way that students at LSU were housed and given the best of everything. And students at Southern University got substandard everything, including education, including food, including everything. And black people represent 30% of the population in Louisiana. We were paying taxes, and we were paying the same taxes that the people who were at LSU were paying, and probably more, and we were getting less services than that community was. So those are some of the things that we were concerned about. On November 16th, I was taken to the state prison. I was strip searched. I was given a mattress to carry. I weighed about 87 pounds to carry into a cell, a crowded cell of women. I was advised to go, or they suggested that I went into a cell with two women that were at least 350 pounds each and obviously had some serious mental issues. So I don't know if I was being sent there or set up for something horrible to happen to me, but I know that the state intended to hurt students on that particular day and, in fact, did slaughter two students on Southern's campus.
Right. And I can speak to what happened on November 16th. And I also can speak to all of the lies that were written about what happened. And most of the lies initially came from Governor Edwards and Sheriff Al Amos. And they are rebuffed in the report that was created by then Attorney General William Gus, and his reporting exonerate us for many of the things that Edwards said. The fact that initially they said that the students that were shot were killed as a result of bombs that they claimed that we produced. The FBI report clearly says that there is the FBI reporting says that there was no bombs generated by any of the students. The FBI also says that there were only 150. There is a report that says there was 1,000 students out front of the administration building on that day. That's totally incorrect. The FBI came in, and within a day of being on campus, a day of being in Baton Rouge investigating what went on, they were able to determine there were only 150 students outside. I can go on and on with all of the lies that Edwards and others have said about us, and they were totally untrue. We did not take over the administration building, and if you read Gus's report, he says that we never took over the administration building. There was a report that says that we, nearly demolished President Netterville's office. Reports from Gus says the office was, moderately disturbed because you had all the students in there, but there was no significant damage to that. I mean, on and on and on. We went to the administration building that morning to ask the Netterville to seek the release of the student that had been arrested the night before. In his office, we were standing essentially in the outer office, and he said, I'm on my way downtown anyway, and while I'm there, I will speak to whomever to get him released. You guys wait for me here. That's in the report. And also, however, if you read the report, you will find that Netterville had also communicated with Hunt to inform him that the students were there and he was going to be going downtown. It was Hunt who made all these calls to the sheriff to say that students were there and to suggest that Netterville was in jeopardy. When Netterville was interviewed, and it's in the newspapers, I got copies, I can share that with you guys. He said there was never, ever a time where he felt threatened by the students. This is his words precisely. He also said that the call to the sheriff's deputies was made by one of his deputies with his consent. That was to say that he did not make that call. The Gus report corroborates that. Netterville didn't make the call. Hunt had made several calls to the police on that evening. When they came, I was available that morning because when they came to my place, I was not there. Okay? And so Ricky Hill, who had already been arrested prior, he and I went on campus to talk to Netterville. And also, Nate was there as well. Once Netterville said, hey, I'm going downtown and I will talk to whomever to get the students released, I walked outside and stood on the steps along with the other students so that I can inform them of where things were, to inform them what Netterville had told us. And so as to not to just let them know what was going on. Once we did that, ultimately on the campus came the police, just like Sakari just said. The police came on. The sheriff deputies lined up in front of us. The state police lined up to our left. After they lined up, they tried to make an announcement. Sometime later, they tried to make an announcement. It is reported, even by one of the news reporters, that he was standing right next to Amos as Amos tried to make an announcement, and he, standing next to Amos, had no idea of what Amos had said. Amos claims that he told us to move. Nobody understood or heard his announcement. Then the Louisiana State Police rolled a tear gas canister.
I want to remind our viewers, our listeners, what we're talking about. So today is the 50th anniversary of the deaths of the two Southern University students in Baton Rouge, Devin Smith and Leonard Brown. And this happened in the context of some student movements that were happening on campus to protest the conditions that were happening on campus and throughout the country. And tonight there is an event happening to commemorate those deaths And if possible, would Miss Brenda be able to speak to the purpose of tonight's event and what you're hoping will come out of the events tonight?
Sure. Hergit and Charlene, and I use those names for purposes of this conversation, have given you a very accurate idea of what was going on at that time. Well, tonight's event is going to be more than just one of the yearly commemoratives. In about November of last year, I started contacting people I knew were central figures in what took place to find out if they would be willing to engage in dialogue, not only about what happened, because everybody had an individual experience in terms of what happened, but to find out where do we go from here. For 50 years, many of us hadn't really talked about it with people who weren't very close to the issues, but I felt that it was time that the truth really come out, because over the 50 years, what was very disturbing to me was that newspaper and television accounts seemed very different from what my experiences were. And just to be clear, I was not a member of the central group of students who organized the demonstrations and the movement, but I was a very willing and supportive supporter of what they were doing, because the things that they were talking about were things that were germane to the psychology department and the engineering department, but those same things were true in other departments like mine, which was sociology. Now, about tonight's experience, I can't really tell you exactly what's going to happen, because some of it has been said to be things that will surprise those of us who will be participants in a positive way. So I'm not going to say exactly what will happen, but what I do know is that there has been a lot of work going on over the years to investigate, not only to determine the particular officer or officers who fired the fatal shots, but to also clarify and correct some of the misinformation that's been out there for years. In addition to that, we decided that there were certain asks that we wanted to put forth of not only the administration, but to public officials, because there were students who were banned from the university for life. And I want people to just think about that. Louisiana is the most incarcerated municipal entity in the world, and I know that some will dispute whether we are last or next to last, but there's very little differentiation, and they often exchange places. So at an historically black university in the city of Baton Rouge and state of Louisiana, the most incarcerated place in the world, it would stand to reason that horrible things like a ban for life would be in existence. But many people of good faith figured that is excessive. It's excessive for more than one reason. One reason is because the students were not attempting to overthrow the university, as some may want to think. They were attempting to make Southern University the preeminent, premier, outstanding university that it had the potential to be. So what students were doing was pointing out the deficiencies, such that those who were in power to correct them could make those changes. That is why I was a willing participant, because I felt that there were many, many deficiencies in not only the university as a whole, but in the department in which I participated. So I admire those students who were willing to risk their own safety, their own security, and their own education to fight for this. And I felt that they should be lifted up, that their stories should be told from their own mouths, and that those bans should be removed. Now, during that process, I encountered a young woman whose name is Brittany Dunn, and she wanted to interview me because someone had given her my name. I was very reluctant because, again, I didn't even discuss this with my family. But when she gave me the name of Professor Angela Bell, that changed my opinion because I knew of Professor Bell's reputation and the outstanding work that she had done to remove non-unanimous juries from Louisiana's criminal justice scene. So I spoke with Professor Bell to verify that this connection was indeed accurate. So tonight, we're hoping that people will come out. They will listen to those who were up front and center, not necessarily on the day of November 16th, but people who could tell about the events that led up to that. And more importantly, what is going to happen in 2022 that will not just make this another year where people say 2 students died, we honor them, and then move on.
Okay, Ms. Brenda, can you tell everyone
that is life-changing?
Right. And can you tell everyone exactly where this event is happening this evening?
It's going to happen at the old state capitol, located near River Road. Most people from the Baton Rouge area know exactly where it is. It's near the library and the city government complex off of North Boulevard. And it's going to take place at 5 o'clock. I know it'll be a little bit cool, and you may have to walk a little bit for parking. So come early. Be ready to listen. And there will be a time at the end where people from the general public will be able to ask questions of those who are on the panel. You will also be able to hear from what is called a cold case project. That is a collaboration. It started at LSU, and it's a collaboration of LSU graduate students and law students at Southern University. So come out, 5 o'clock, should be over by 7, and I know that it will be worth the time that you spend.
Okay, so it's free and open to the public, correct?
Free and open to the public.
Okay, and I just want to say, as students, you really, you were firsthand witnesses of an injustice that happened, and you were just fighting for your human rights and inequities. So with that, do you feel that there is going to be justice had at some point for these students that died? Is that what your goal is? You're still searching for justice for their deaths, correct?
Well, that's one of the things that we're looking for, and I don't necessarily know how you can do anything to rectify the loss of a life. I really don't, and especially such a young life. But I do feel that the school owes some type of reparations to the families of Denver and Leonard, some type of educational opportunities to all of their descendants or members of their families, apologies to the families for what took place, and something put in place so that when students have grievances or voices, there's a body that they can go to and discuss those things before National Guardsmen and people like that are called onto the campus to hurt the students. And one other thing I'd like to add is that we were in court for a month before we were barred from Southern University for life. And the people who defended us were sent by the National Education Association and the NAACP Legal Defense Fund, which is a separate organization, a legal branch of the NAACP that's pretty much independent. And they sent attorneys, John Walker and Thomas Divins, to Southern University to defend us, and they funded that, and they did that for a month, which resulted in us being banned from Southern University for life. And that disrupted all of our lives.
Well, we want to thank you. Yes, unfortunately, Charlene, we've got to take a break. We're running out of time, but we want to thank you for sharing your stories with us today, sharing that history. It's and invite everyone to partake in your event happening tonight. Brenda, Mr. Herjet, Charlene, thank you so very much for joining us on the front porch.
Thank you.
We're going to take a short break right now. We'll be right back. Toya Jordan is here, financial coach, and she's going to tell us about a special event she has coming up. We're WBOK 1230 AM, the station you listen to all day long.